Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
Fascinating when you talk with people and you learn about their lives. I believe everybody has a story. We all have stories. His story is pretty fascinating in that he is a well-established architect in the New York City metro area and has been for decades. But even before that, he was a tennis pro and playing among some of the greatest players on the planet, and still have those people still have that stature. And we're going to learn more about his early years in the tennis side today. I'm talking about architect John Riggio, and he's on the program with us. Hey, John, how you doing?
Good. Hi, Steve. How are you?
Well, I didn't even know where to begin here. I think last time we left off, we were talking about how a lot of tennis or sports professionals, like actors, have stand-ins. And I never realized that. Can we go back to that right now?
Yes. So I was waiting for some news broadcast about people having stand-ins, willing to really to show it in the news, and I was able to find a very nice article. This is an article that came up on the internet, and it shows a number of people. And I see one of them here is it shows Bruce Willis with his stand-in. He looks very similar.
Mm.
And he has him doing all kinds of things. And then there's another one with here Andrew Garfield shows his stand-in.
Wow, that
This
looks just
article
like
is
him.
very good. It shows about like 10 of them.
Mm.
I see the articles written by Sarah Milano, and she has a lot of them showing all different actors, entertainers, and some of them describe. I saw one of them was describing how the stand-in used to do all kinds of things, getting on stage, everything like that. So they are willing to show that they had a stand-in, and it doesn't seem to affect their career. It shows that they had a stand-in, and so that I think is very good, and that just shows what I was talking about as far as in tennis. When I reached a certain level, at that point was at my $26.5 million contract, that I was able to make a stand-in for me. And that is,
So tell me why they would have a stand-in. Now, I get in the actor arena. Like even Will Smith said in the last week that he confessed that, okay, I don't drive the car in typically in some of the scenes that you see me in. I know a lot of y'all thought I was driving it, but I'm not. He has a stand-in for that. And I could see there, safety issues, certainly stunt people stand in for actors because it could be dangerous. On the tennis side, why would they have a stand-in for you?
it's very similar at a certain level with the tennis. The stand-in would make appearances, maybe even make work as like a spokesman, answering questions, things like that. And that is really what the stand-in was doing.
So it almost sounds like, John, where you can't be in two places at once. So, you could have a stand-in in California, you could be playing in Japan, and it's just that, to get that publicity out there. Is that part of it as well?
Yes, it is. Yes,
Okay.
it's really part of advertisement and showing that I'm a player in different areas, and that's exactly what the stand-in is for.
Wow. So they had one for you. That's super cool. I mean, the fact you reach a certain level. I need a Steve stand then. I probably not, but you reach a certain level where they need that so that they can propel the sports star out there. Wow. Okay. Huh. Interesting. How about in terms of the level of playing, pro tennis playing levels? You mentioned that briefly, but let's go back into that. There's a certain level, they give you a certain number to demonstrate, what level playing you're at.
Yes. So when I was playing tennis, the maximum number of levels you could reach is level 12. I think most people are used to playing level 0 to 5. That's most people are playing 0 to 5. That's like club level tennis. But if you were an excellent player, a lot of times when you are young, players start to go above level 5. You go to level 5.5. And if you can make level 5.5 is when you're eligible to play in the national tournament. So at level 5.5, now even if you make 5.5, you still have to win to enter into the national tournament. But usually 5.5 is really the start of playing higher level tennis, getting into what they call national tournament level tennis. Then if you can make it past 5.5, between like 5.5 and level 8, you start moving through those levels. Those might be junior level tennis playing under 18. And then to get into the pros, you really have to really play above level 8. You have to get to level 8. They prefer you to really just get to like level 9 in the playing level. And what they do with the players when they're young is you can start playing maybe heading up through level 7, 8, and if you show that you are going to improve in a very quick time, maybe only in 2 months' time, you can continue playing in the pro tour. And the hope is that you would then continue on to level 9. And then it gets more difficult. Then the next levels are trying to get to level 10, 11, and 12. And now with my playing, I was able to achieve to get to level 12. But it's very
Wow.
difficult, and very few players can get to that. So a lot of the players playing pro, they might be coming in playing. You might see them playing at level 8, then maybe level 9, and then as you advance, going up into the rankings, getting into the top 500 group, you want to try to get to like level 10. Then it's like level 10. If you can start to play in the top of the group, you're going heading into level 11, and then the very few top players would get to like level 12 tennis. And
Wow.
and these are the same levels that are really most people will play in a club. They play starting off with no knowledge of tennis. You just play over level 0. Then if you were playing through the rankings, a lot of people like to play to level 3. Level 3 is a popular level of playing just club level tennis, playing level 3. Then if usually if you get to level 4.5, is another sort of level that is really a really a solid, excellent tennis player. Like a lot of people when they're older, they come back to playing tennis. If you could play level 4.5, you're playing excellent tennis. You're really an excellent
Wow.
tennis player. And they have little tests for each level too. There's tests for each level. And this I think in the club level, then they have like level 5 would be like an expert player. But then like I was saying, if you usually younger players, if you can achieve past those levels left, past level 5, then you're heading into really heading towards where you could potentially become a pro. Where you're getting into 5.5 is really called the national tournament level tennis. And then the whole thing is depends on your playing ability. You have to play and win matches too, is another thing. And you have to win enough matches in like a percentage to really start to advance to move up. But that
Wow.
is really how the levels go. I think it has a lot to do with the player's ability. You can't really force moving up in the rankings too hard. You can hurt yourself. You have to really continue to improve your playing slowly to move up. And the goal was really to get to level 12.
Hmm. Wow. That's got to make you feel good when you attain that certain level. Do they tell you what level you're at? Is that how it works? Or it's just the rankings, the number of games you won, or matches? How is the level determined?
The levels are determined by small tests. And also, if you were to play with a tennis instructor, from you hitting each different kind of hit on the court, they could look at the different ways you're hitting the ball, and they could determine a certain number. And that is, so you'd start off with no knowledge, you're level 0. Then usually you move it very slowly, level 1, level 1.5, 2, 2.5, 3. And I think most people, everyday players are playing like will play level 3, and then when you get a little over 3, you're becoming a little more advanced, 3.5, 4, and then 4.5 is another good level. That's a solid level of play. But that has to do with tests. They give you tests. You can go to any tennis center, and they can test your ability, and they can write down on a piece of paper your level of playing, and that gives you a ranking, gives you an idea of how good you're playing, and from there you would move up. I think when I was younger, usually tennis overall, pro tennis, even national tournament, they're not putting anything in writing unless it's a coach's personal writing. He puts on his notes that he would have, but otherwise they don't really put too many things in writing. A lot of things in tennis, they would usually just tell you, and you would just use your memory to memorize all those different things that they tell you. So that is one
Yes.
interesting thing about tennis. And I think one thing about the national tournament that I was interested to tell you about, this is the national tournament. When I got to that level, there are different tracks within the national tournament. Even with the national tournaments, they have the amateur track, which might lead to the Olympics, and they have the pro track, which is really professional players. And I was already a professional player. So when I was playing the national tournament, I was already on the pro track for professional players. And there's a lot of things with the national tournament. Nothing's in writing. If I was to meet for a match, the coach there from the national tournament, there were two of them at the time, and he would just tell me what day and time we're going to meet. If I'm going to play one matches or two matches, I had the ability back then to play two national tournament matches in a row. So I was playing, I was still playing a lot of matches, and I would go there on Saturday morning to play the matches. But and then they had matches like sort of like flex matches to stay in sort of like stay in shape and keep your playing good. And a lot of those were even done with they suggested having like one of those telephone beepers, so they can even just call you and tell you on the phone just verbally where the matches are. So they would call me on the phone and they would tell me where the match is, and I would go and I'd play the match just for to stay in shape. It was that wasn't part of the main part of the national tournament. It was just extra matches that you could play, and they even had things like that. They had to keep it secret too. The national tournament overall is very similar to pro playing. They had the different tracks in the national tournament, but they had the same problem with people coming over and wanting to cause problems with the national tournament playing. So
You know,
every
I love this, your passion for this, John. And, even you've done your day, you've played, and you hear about another match just to stay in shape, whether they beep you or whatever it was back then, and you go and play because that's what you love doing. You just love it so much. Like, yeah, I'm going to go play another one. I'm going to go play another one. Yeah, I'm tired, but I'm going to play another one because it's so important to you, right?
Yes, yes, of course, yes, and playing with the national tournament, of course, at that time it was a pro tournament, and the national tournament at that time, for my track led to the Davis Cup, where I described I was already number one U.S. player going into the Davis Cup. Now,
Wow.
during those 7 matches, I had described Dorothy Hamill and my girlfriend Delilah watched one of my matches. I think the only thing about Delight and Dorothy Ham, they're very similar. They're good friends, like sisters. But in fact, my girlfriend Delilah was taller. She was more like 5'10", and I just checked the bio on Dorothy Ham, was just a little shorter.
Mm.
But what happened is from watching me play, I think Dorothy Hamill really liked this tennis playing I was doing, and she was already told a lot about it. So she had her friend Kenneth Forsyth come, and they set up a match for me, and I played her friend playing tennis. Of course, I won the match, but it was really good, and they were able to really get an idea of my playing ability too, firsthand playing with me. They're both athletes. I mean, they're both athletes, and so they really like this kind of thing, because they're already involved with competitive athletes. So when I was able to play our friend, they really get an idea of my playing ability, and this whole thing was really becoming real to them because Delilah was already telling them about my playing ability and my tennis. So it wasn't just stories; they were really there, and he was there on the court playing with me personally and things like that. So that is one thing that happened that was very interesting. So they got an idea, and they really believed my tennis playing was excellent, and I was continuing to play for a while.
Mm. How about Japan? Let's go back there. You played a lot in Japan. They at one point they had a lot of players on their team.
Yes, even though Japan was the lead team and the Mitsubishi was thinking about buying the contract at the time, and looks like it was going ahead. But they had all the players from the Pacific, and I think there was another team. I think it was Indonesia that they sent in 3 busloads of players. So if Japan had just 1 busload of players, they had 3 busloads of players, and I played all the players. And I remember one of their team members was commenting that I played all 3 busloads and I didn't lose any matches. They were laughing about it. So that's good. They didn't get angry about it. They didn't get frustrated or angry about it. They were laughing about it. They were really impressed. So that is one thing. So Japan didn't have the largest team. So I think it was Indonesia had the largest team of 3 busloads. That was
I have a question about this. So you're playing Asian players. Obviously, I'm guessing you don't speak their language. Is there ever been a challenge in terms of language barriers, or that's the way sports works? We have the rules established, and you just show up on the court and you play them. And it's the body language, after you win, maybe you shake somebody's hand or whatever it might be. Was there ever any kind of like language barrier?
It turns out with the teams from the Pacific, I was playing with them, and almost all of them that I communicated with, they all were able to speak English. So it was very good. All the different
Wow.
teams, they did speak some English.
Wow. The things you
And
learn
thinking
here.
with the other teams at Sutton East, I was playing all kinds of different teams. Players came from around the world. They all were able to speak some English.
Interesting. And why would they be able to speak English? Why was that was it one of those things where if you're going to be playing tennis internationally that, hey, guys, you need to learn to, speak English as one of the languages, under your belt.
Yes, I think that's what it is. Yes, they were speaking English. Yes,
Hmm.
it was important for them to speak English, so almost all of them had the ability to communicate with me.
How about the US Tennis Center? I know that you spent a lot of time there. Why don't we go back to the US Tennis Center and what happened? Maybe some things that we didn't talk about.
Yes, so with the tennis center, I told you about some previous players that the National Tennis Center in Flushing, there was something going on at that particular location where they were giving some people sort of like some blocks of really getting through and playing in their tournaments in the US Open. And I think one of them was Brian Godfrey, then it was Brad Drewitt, and then it was myself playing there, even though I had my own court 33 for a while there, and things were going good. Um, then I told you about the Australian team having enough at that point, and they left. They brought their ranking all the way to Australia. And but after that, years later, I talked to John Eisner. He's a professional tennis player. I think he's well advertised, and he's really the next U.S. player to really go through the National Tennis Center. And I had talked to him at networking, and yeah, he was the one who was telling me that really he was like the next player going through there. And I think he was able to continue making some progress playing in the National Tennis Center. They
Oh.
weren't able to ruin things on him, and he continued to play. And I think so. Things each generational player, whatever the stops were, they were able to continue to get in there, and weren't able to really bother their career too much. So that is
So I am like you from the New York area, just coincidence. Um, is the US Tennis Center still there? Or if not, what is it?
yes, the National Tennis Center located in Flushing is still there.
Wow.
All those improvements are going there. I think I passed by there and I saw they put a big cover over one of the stadiums they had there.
Hmm.
And I think one interesting thing about the stadiums, just to get an inside report, is I was talking to some of the pro tennis players, and most of the stadiums they're really being used by amateur tennis players. They aren't being used by the top pros. Like even when I got word from different people like Ross Perot and even the Japanese team, saying that the things like the stadiums were not really the important thing with tennis. That isn't the main thing about tennis. In fact,
Wow.
the televised matches seem to be more important. Getting onto ESPN is much more important. But
Wow.
the thing with the stadiums, what I was told on the inside of what's going on is mostly the amateur leagues are using the stadiums. They really like using the stadiums. I think even though they were saying I was building the stadiums when I was there, they were renovating and building new stadiums. They it's usually the amateur leagues were using the stadiums. I don't know
Hmm.
why, but somehow they like to use the stadiums the most.
Well, maybe it's because it's just a, psychologically, it's kind of exciting to be in a big stadium, even though you're, at the amateur level. When we say amateur, what do we mean? Is this just
That's like if you just played regular USTA tennis.
okay? Gotcha.
In fact, I played some USTA tennis when I came back after I was 39 years old, and yeah, I was playing that inside in the tennis
Wow.
thing and everything. They have the tournaments and all kinds of things.
See, I never knew that. So they, learned something new here. So we're talking, you were playing tennis when you were in your 20s, and that's centering everything here. But so you're saying you came back after and you played tennis when you were in your
I
upper
did, yes,
30s?
yes. Years later, after I was 39, what happened was, yeah, I got back playing because my daughter, we were at the park, and I was able to find my way into playing tennis again.
Wow. All right. And I know, we've talked before that you still play tennis occasionally, or maybe every weekend, you still teach it. So I guess it's one of those things
Yes,
that it's in your blood. You can't get rid
yes,
of it.
I'm still teaching tennis, and this week I taught some players again. This week, still teaching tennis,
Wow.
and so I did that little thing of playing at the U.S. Tennis Center again, and but it's very well organized as far as the players. They have some basic leagues there that you could still play, and but it goes under
Hmm.
the USTA. The USTA isn't really the same as the ATP or the ITF. There's a two different leagues.
So I I want to know if you think this, but yesterday in the New York area, we broke a record. It was, in the mid 60s. And I'm outside walking around for a moment, walking my dog, and the first thought I had is I would love to be out here playing tennis with my daughter. And we, I think I shared with you, I play like when it's warmer out, maybe, twice a month. Um, do you get that feeling like when it's warm out? Do you think like, oh, you know what? I wish I was playing tennis right now when it's nice out.
Yeah, yeah. Usually over 60 degrees, people are back outside on the court. I know
Yeah.
this is from years of having my tennis group here, and I notice each year, as soon as it turns 60 degrees, everyone's coming back on the court. If it goes under 60 degrees, everyone they don't bother to come outside. It's getting too
Yeah.
cold for them.
Yeah.
I,
Honestly,
I saw I did set up the indoor tennis this year. I played some indoor tennis in Staten Island. They have it over at the Staten Island Community Tennis has the bubble there,
mhm.
and so I did have the indoor tennis available for the winter. So that was something new I was doing this year. It's a very nice tennis bubble they have there with some courts.
Yeah, I'm sure it's great, but it's probably not the same as being outside. There's just something about, being in the fresh air and just moving around with the breeze and everything. And, I'm at this level in terms of tennis. You're like, at the ceiling, but it's still kind of fun. John, always great talking with you and just, learn so much and just your history and history in general, because we're talking about some of the, top players in the world. Always a pleasure. Everybody, John Riggio is the website, John Riggio.com. And of course, you can find John on YouTube, lots of videos up there and some new videos too. That address your architecture as well. I appreciate you, John. Thanks for being here, and we'll talk next time. Okay,
Thanks, Steve. It was good talking to you.
you too. We'll be right back.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
Mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house. And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned.
This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.